Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story: clueless manager forces heavily pregnant employees to dress ridiculously. Many customer and employee complaints ensue. The second story: ex accuses me of hiding income and money laundering. Her divorce lawyer demands 3 years of financials. I spam fax them with my company's e-fax service. The third story: pilot didn't answer my question and drove me away, so I made him wait, and passengers. Today's first story is: you want me to tuck my shirt in? Sure, boss. Years ago, I worked at a certain big box pet store with employees in blue shirts and poorly maintained fish tanks. Back then, employees were required to tuck their uniform shirts into their khakis, with an exemption for pregnant female employees, which I was at the time of this occurrence. I worked the registers with my untucked shirt with no issues for months while I was preggo. When I was about 8 months pregnant and just a few weeks shy of going on maternity leave, we got a new manager that was painfully clueless and stupid. Isn't that always the way? So one day, this manager calls myself and the other main cashier, who was also just as preggo as I was, into the office with another manager as a witness, to tell us that we're fine cashiers, but our uniforms are lacking. The other cashier and myself are just, huh? Because we both had our khakis, uniform shirts, and black sneakers. Everything was neat and clean, so we both had no clue what he was talking about. I ask him what he's referring to. He replies that our shirts have to be tucked in. The other cashier and I have both been with the company for a while, and we're both super familiar with the uniform policy. So she and I both object and let him know that pregnant employees are exempt from the tucking policy. He waves his hand at us and says that we're incorrect and that all employees must tuck their shirts. The other manager that's there acting as a witness chimes in that we are correct, but clueless manager cuts witness manager off and says he knows what the policy is and that previous management was just being lax. They weren't. Pregnant employees were actually exempt. The other cashier and I shrug and leave the office to go tuck our shirts in. Clueless manager left for the day right after talking to us. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. We tucked our shirts in for sure, but if you aren't familiar with pregnant fashion, you essentially have 2 options for pants. Option 1 is using a belly band on your existing pants, or using pants with a belly band attached already. A belly band is essentially a very wide elastic strap that goes around the baby bump to hold your pants up, which essentially puts the top edge of your pants at your ribs. Option 2 is to do the hairband trick, which is to take an elastic hair tie and loop it through the buttonhole of your pants and around the button of the pants. This gives you a few extra inches of waist room in your pants to accommodate the baby bump, and also exposing your underwear and lower abdomen since you cannot zip up your fly. Both options look absolutely ridiculous and are meant to be concealed under a shirt, and they only get more ridiculous the more pregnant you are, which we were both heavily pregnant by this time. For those unfamiliar, by 8 months pregnant you are basically Violet from Willy Wonka with an internal Oompa Loompa kicking you in the bladder every 20 minutes. So we both emerge, waddle gloriously from the back room, where we tucked in our shirts looking absurd. I had my shirt tucked into my belly band just below my boobs, and the other cashier had hers tucked into her hairband closed pants, below her belly and with her leopard print underwear exposed. Clueless manager was already gone for the day, so he was not present to see our magnificent uniform compliance. He wasn't in for another 2 days, so he didn't see our dutiful compliance, but all of our customers and coworkers sure did. Our regulars asked why we had our shirts tucked like that, and of course we obliged them and explained that clueless manager insisted we tuck our shirts in to comply with the uniform policy. For 2 full days, and part of that first shift after clueless manager left for the day, customer complaints to corporate about our treatment rolled in, and coworkers called the employee hotline to report clueless manager. District manager is peeved about the whole thing, which we found out on day 3. On day 3, return of clueless manager, he enters the store, sees the other cashier and myself with our beautifully ridiculous uniforms, and asks why we are dressed like that. Huh? You told us to tuck our shirts in. He gets red in the face and beelines to the office. He calls us into the office immediately and starts going off on us for not taking the uniform policy seriously. Mid-tirade, the district manager arrives furious. She turned to us preggo egos and nicely told us to untuck our shirts and head back out to the floor, before turning to clueless manager and going ballistic on him for enforcing something that we preggos were exempt from. Turns out clueless manager ruined district manager's days off because of all the complaints that came in about the 2 pregnant employees forced by a male manager to show their underwear and pregnancy attire in public due to an absurd uniform policy. The complaints weren't just about the manager, they were about the company uniform policy as well. The customers didn't know the real policy, and the employee hotline complaints as well. All these had to be handled by the district manager ASAP, because the sheer number of complaints in such a short time meant that the regional manager was breathing down the district manager's neck to resolve the issue. District manager forced an apology to us out of clueless manager and treated us to lunch. We also got our stools to sit on at the register's back. Clueless manager took our stools away because if you can lean, you can clean. Clueless manager was sent back to HR training and fired shortly after for another similar violation. I was on maternity leave, so I didn't get to wish him farewell. The next story is Ex's divorce lawyer. Send 3 years of complete financials or else. Me, as you wish. This happened several years ago when my ex and I were going through a heated divorce and custody battle. While we were married, we had a couple of conversations about how rich people hide their assets to avoid paying taxes. I've never had enough assets to do this, but she somehow got the idea that I was and told her attorney that I was laundering money and hiding income. It was more likely the heat of the moment, as divorce and custody battles often come down to. I couldn't even afford my own attorney, so I represented myself. Her lawyer wasn't a total A, but he was clearly out to get me, and he talked down to me like I didn't deserve to breathe the same air. One day I get a letter in the mail from him requesting an updated income declarations form and 3 years of financials. It had a long A list of things to include. I own a communications tech company that was in super startup phase back then. Money was already tight. I was trying to get this business off the ground with no financing. I was finishing my MBA with scholarships and loans, so paying for copies and postage or driving this 30 miles to his office meant eating peanut butter and saltines for a week. So I called him to explain my situation. He all but called me a liar and didn't believe I couldn't afford it. I was put off by that and said this was taking time away from business I needed to handle, to which he replied, and I'll never forget this, "Well, according to your income declarations, you're not that busy. What do you do all day?" He then said if he didn't get these documents, he would consider my previous filings as fraudulent, tell the judge, contact the DA, and also alert the state tax agency and IRS. Probably an empty threat, but I'm no lawyer. eFax is one of the services my company provides, and at this time it was relatively unknown. So I asked him if he has a fax machine. He said he had a fax, scanner, copier device, then said what law office doesn't have a fax machine, and I suddenly got an idea. "Okay," I said to him, "I'll put together and fax whatever I can." "Okay, MF, you want 3 years of financials? You got it." I scanned a PDF every receipt I could find. McDonald's receipt from 5 years ago? F it, won't hurt to include it. CVS receipt? It's 3 miles long. Perfect. They get the $1 off toothpaste coupons too. I downloaded every bank statement, credit card statement, purchase orders from vendors, and every invoice I sent to clients. I printed to PDF the entire 3-year accounting journal, monthly, quarterly, and annual balance sheets, cash flow statements, P&Ls. Not only did I PDF 3 years of tax filings, but every single letter I received from the IRS and state tax agency, including the inserts advising me of my rights. It took a while, but I was a few days ahead of the deadline. I made a cover page, black background with white lettering. Wherever I could, I included separator pages in all caps in the biggest, boldest font that would fit on the page in landscape, 20XX receipts, 20XX taxes, etc. I merged everything into a single 150-plus page compressed PDF and sent the document using my eFax system. Every hour or so, I received a status email saying the fax failed. Huh, that's weird. Well, they're getting this document. So I changed the system configuration to unlimited retries after failures to keep redialing until it went through. Weird, I was still getting status email failures. I'll delete the failure emails and keep the success one after it eventually goes through, I thought. Problem solved. 2 days later, a lady from his office called and asked me to stop sending the fax. Their fax, scanner, printer, copier had been printing nonstop. It kept getting paper jams, kept running out of ink, and they had to keep shutting it off and back on to print. I explained that her boss told me to send this by the deadline, or else he would call the DA and IRS. Since I didn't want a call from the DA or the IRS, I would keep sending until I got a success confirmation. I suggested they just not print until my fax completes, but she didn't like that. She asked me to email the documents, and I told a little white lie that my email wouldn't allow an attachment that big, unless her boss in writing agreed to cancel the request, or agree to reimburse me for my costs to print and ship. I said I would continue to fax until they confirmed they've received my page. She put me on hold, and the attorney gets on the line. He said forget sending the financials. I said that I would need this in writing, so I'll keep sending the fax until he sent that to me. He asked me to stop faxing, and he would send it in writing, and I said send it in writing first and then I'll stop. Long moment of silence, click. About 20 minutes later, I received an email from his assistant with an attached signed letter in PDF that I no longer need to provide financials. The letter then threatened to pursue sanctions in court or sue me for interfering with their business. Every time I saw him after that, the lawyer never brought up sanctions, lawsuits, criminal referrals, or financials again. And the last story is, you'll call me when you need me? Have fun waiting for 2 hours. I work at a small regional airport that mostly caters to chartered flights. This means we have a lot of private jets coming in and out. We cater to the passengers, and when the passengers have everything they need, we make sure the pilots have their aircraft fueled up, have coffee, newspapers, and whatever else they need. Most pilots are very nice and even tip, especially if we have to clean out their lavatory. But one pilot was not so nice. In fact, he was especially mean. We have a term for him in the aviation industry, Sky King, so we'll call him SK from now on. As a bit of background, it was a Tuesday, and we were expecting it to be a slow day, so I was working alone. I was responsible for taking care of aircraft and pilots, as well as ringing them up for their charges, running the front desk, and taking care of miscellaneous work around the airport. We keep a cell phone on us, so when someone calls the office while we're out doing other things, they have a direct way of contacting us. We even have a sign that we put up on the front desk that says, "Our line crew is out working on the ramp or in one of the hangars. If you need assistance, please call the number." I park the airplane, ensure the aircraft is checked and secured, then take care of the passengers by bringing their rental car right next to the aircraft and loading their luggage. They were friendly and appreciative. Once that was settled, I peeked into the airplane to talk to the pilots. I asked how their flight was and what they would be needing. The co-pilot said they were picking up more passengers in about 30 minutes, and knowing that it takes quite a while to fully fuel a large airplane, I asked if they needed fuel for a rather quick turnaround. That's when Sky King comes storming out of the cockpit. SK, did you just ask if we need fuel? Me, yes SK, instead of bugging me, how about you peeve off for 5 minutes and let me figure it out? Me, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to… SK, peeve off, I'll call you when I need you. I walked away from the aircraft a bit shaken up, but I was so upset I figured, okay then, call me when you need me. So I proceeded to do everything else I had on my list for the day. I swept our maintenance hangar, did an oil change on our aircraft tug, bled the brakes on our jet porter, and detailed our company's private jet. I looked at the clock and realized that SK's passengers probably arrived about an hour and a half ago. So I returned to the terminal and SK is peeved. SK, where the heck were you? Me, I was doing maintenance. You said you'd call me when you needed me. SK, how was I supposed to find you in this entire airfield? I gestured to our sign on the front desk and said, loudly enough for the passengers to hear, if you needed me, we have our number right here. Have they been waiting on you this whole time? SK turns absolutely red in the face, seeing his answer right in front of him. We need 500 gallons of Jet A. And I put on my most SH-eating grin and say, 500 gallons coming right up. I bring the fuel truck around and fuel them up. Takes a solid 10 minutes, and start loading the passengers' baggage while SK and his co-pilot ready the airplane. I apologize profusely to the passengers, and to my delight they take my side, saying I can't believe he didn't see the sign. The best part was when he had to come back in and pay for the fuel with his company card. Knowing he was hours behind schedule, I took my sweet time running him up. Do you want a newspaper to read on the flight, I asked, with the same SH-eating grin on my face. He left without a word. I hope you love these stories. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when the new videos come out.